Hello, Milwaukee Bucks fans. Welcome back to yet another episode of Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. As always, I'm your host, Dean Simon. And before we get into everything, please make sure to leave a like, leave a comment down below, and also subscribe. We are still very much on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and we just crossed the 950 subscriber threshold. I can't believe we've reached that kind of milestone already, and we're still, again, very much on the road to 1,000. So if you would like to press that big red button down below, I would really appreciate it. Also, turn on post notifications so you stay up to date with future episodes. All right, so first thing we're going to get into today is that ESPN released a new preseason article before things really get going. And by the way, we're about a week away from the NBA preseason. I can't believe that we're this close. We actually almost have real life NBA basketball to be watching. Well, won't really count towards anything just yet, but we are just this much closer to actual NBA basketball. So excited to cover the season for you guys. But anyways, Giannis was ranked in this list of it was the top 100 players in the NBA for the upcoming 25-26 season, and this isn't necessarily a ranking of players right now, like who are the top 100 players in the NBA right now. It's kind of like uh, again, a preseason list that's kind of determining where these players will end up in the pecking order for the incoming season, like where these guys will end up after the 25-26 season is wrapped up. And Giannis Antetokounmpo came in at number 4 in the NBA, and this was behind Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, not in that order, but I believe it was Jokic 1, Shea 2, Luka 3, Giannis 4. And it really just strikes me as crazy because in this position, necessarily, like Giannis couldn't really do anything except, have a historic season to keep his spot within the, 3 to 5 range. He, you know, for all we could say here, averaging 30 points, 11, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists a game, shooting 60% from the field. That just hasn't happened before. Giannis is, he completely broke out and, had a field of statistics that were his own. And what did he get from that? He fell in the rankings from last year. He was a 3 to 4. And of course, this was really because Shea Gilgeous-Alexander came in and just blew everybody away and won MVP and ultimately finals MVP, averaged 30, almost 33 points a game on incredible efficiency. And you can't really fault Giannis for slipping down when a guy like Shea comes in, and especially because Shea was, not well, he was given this amazing team, and he was lucky enough to spearhead a 68 win team that, of course, went on to win the championship. So, in that same vein, like you can't really expect anything more from Giannis because of the team that he was on and the expectations that were placed upon him, being teamed up with Damian Lillard and then Dame being out for the rest of the season with the Achilles and all that. It was just two different situations entirely. So you can't really fault Giannis for falling from 3 to 4. He had, for all intents and purposes, the best season statistically of his career, you could argue, and that still happens. So hopefully this just gives him even more added motivation to just come in and completely blow everyone away again and have another historic season and finish in the top 3 or 4 in MVP voting again. And who knows if the Bucks are in a good enough position, record wise, seeding wise, maybe Giannis could potentially come away with his third MVP award, and that's really all based on team success, or at least, from that standpoint, if Giannis were to win another one, it would definitely be based on the team success. But we're going to move on to something I wanted to cover, which was an article from Forbes, Brian Sampson, and it kind of detailed where the Bucks are right now and kind of juxtaposed it with teams of the past and kind of the builds of the rosters and the coaching staff and all that. And there was a little bit in here from this article that I really thought that I would kind of highlight. And it wasn't really talking about the construction of the team or really getting into like the nitty gritty of things, but it was really just saying that while at least this is how I internalized it, is that while the media and kind of the outside perspective of the Milwaukee Bucks, it just has everybody going crazy and the first thoughts are, wow, Milwaukee's in the gutter. Now it's just Giannis with no Dame, and yeah, they brought in Miles Turner, but what is it really going to do? And all this, it's as if people are expecting the Milwaukee Bucks to just crumble. But the fact is that the Bucks are not anywhere near a rebuild, despite the cap situation and kind of the lack of young talent, or at least guys that you could really see the Milwaukee Bucks building around outside of, let's say, a guy like Ryan Rollins. Despite all of this, because Giannis Antetokounmpo is on this team, and they have they have a great crop of guys that are competitive that can help a good team win basketball games. The Milwaukee Bucks aren't going anywhere, and that's for the foreseeable future. And the exact quote that I wanted to pull from this article was, again, this is from Forbes, Brian Sampson. The challenge Milwaukee faces is the same one that confronts every NBA contender, sustaining relevance over time. Between the salary cap, the aging curve, and the difficulty of finding complementary stars, very few teams manage to stay near the top for long. The Bucks had their window, capitalized with a title, and are now trying to stretch that championship DNA into a new era. For now, the Bucks appear to be in the middle of a reload rather than a rebuild. Fans can only hope it's a short one. And I believe that it really will be, and that the Bucks will be in a spot this season. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people again, just from the overall makeup of this team, with the number of talented veterans that there are on this team, mixed with decent crops of young talent. Again, like a guy like Ryan Rollins, and even you can say Kevin Porter Jr., Cole Anthony, guys like that. Even though Gary Trent Jr. is getting a little bit older, but there's guys like AJ Green that are going to make a difference. There's a lot of great talent that's going to come together to make this a competitive team. And the one thing that I really just want to take out of this is that the Milwaukee Bucks are not close to a rebuild. The Milwaukee Bucks are not crumbling. They're going to be a decently competitive team in the Eastern Conference, a team that's fighting for at least a 4 to 6 seed placement. I believe the Bucks are going to make the NBA playoffs outright. And maybe that's delusional, thinking that there's no chance that the Bucks are going to be in the play-in tournament, even though they certainly could, because it's not like the East is super strong, but there are a lot of teams that are competing for playoff spots. Regardless, I just need people to realize. At least I would hope that people start to realize before the season gets going that the Milwaukee Bucks are not close to a rebuild, and at least with a 30-year-old, or now 31-year-old, I believe, either now or coming soon, Giannis Antetokounmpo on this basketball team, that's just not the case. People are acting as if the sky is falling and the Bucks are going to be entering a rebuild, and it's just absolutely not the case. And in large part, it's going to be due to this guy. Not really, but um, wanted to also cover something that was mainly about Cole Anthony and how he's visibly, or at least evidently, excited to be getting going with the Milwaukee Bucks and beginning his tenure as a Buck. And this could really be seen from a quote that he gave to The Athletic a little while ago during an interview, and I thought it was kind of funny. But in all seriousness, I'm really excited to see how this develops. What I'm getting at here is that Cole Anthony gave this little quote that said, about his time getting to, be more familiar with the Bucks system and getting to play with Giannis and things like that. The opportunity to get to run that little two-man action with him, with Giannis, that's going to be legendary. Maybe legendary is a stretch, Cole, but for one, I am extremely excited to see how Cole Anthony can develop as a pick and roll ball handler and just as a overall playmaker off the bench, because we know and we've mentioned this, I think, in this previous episode that we've done, um that Cole Anthony is going to come in, and we know what he provides from a scoring standpoint, but how he is able to pass the ball and get guys involved off the bench, like the AJ Greens of the world and the Torian Princes and the Amir Coffees, once he, you know, more or less once he becomes a guaranteed part of the rotation. Cole Anthony being able to kind of spearhead the offense from the bench, from a bench perspective, and getting outside shooters involved, and just kind of being not necessarily the hub, but just a guy that can control things and get things settled down and kind of man the offense. That's going to be something I'm looking forward to seeing if he can develop, or at least if he can kind of branch out in terms of his offensive skill set. If he can maybe leverage the threat of his scoring with more of a, uh, you know, good, strong diet for passing and finding open guys in the corners and driving kick opportunities, all things of that nature. So, Cole Anthony, the thought of him pairing with Giannis, and especially if he develops as a passer, it really could be a dangerous pairing if he is again able to leverage efficient scoring with very smart and keen decision making and playmaking. So, really looking forward to Cole Anthony potentially developing as a passer for this team. And I guess we'll just see where it goes from there. But another guy that's going to take, or hopefully take, another step up in terms of his playmaking is Kevin Porter Jr. And we've seen, or at least we saw from the last 30 game stretch of the regular season last year and then the short playoff run, that Kevin Porter Jr. could be a pretty reliable playmaker. But this is all getting to the point that Brew Hoop from SB Nation, they have done this continuous list of ranking players on the Milwaukee Bucks, kind of from I think there were 20 spots on the list. They went from 20 to now I think they're at 4 or 3, and this included guys on the G League roster and training camp guys and things of that nature. Now that we've gotten to number 4 on the team, Kevin Porter Jr. has taken that spot, and there's a quote about him getting this high placement on the list from Brew Hoops Jack Trahern, and excuse me, wanted to just get this included as well. His words, and I quote: "Getting more into the on-court specifics, Porter will be crucial as one of the team's few live ball playmakers. Passing is a skill that players either have or they don't. It's tough to develop. Kevin has it. He just needs to be efficient and limit his turnovers. Porter will need to throw lobs to rolling big men and Giannis and Jericho Sims. He'll need to build chemistry with the shooting centers and Miles Turner and Bobby Portis. How does he get shooters like AJ Green and Gary Trent involved?" And it's kind of much like I just talked about with Cole Anthony. We'll have to see how he does get the outside shooters involved from a, drive and kick standpoint. One thing that I did want to point out though is that Trey Hearn mentions the limiting the turnovers, and I feel like that was a big, 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 big part of Kevin Porter Jr.'s game once he arrived in Milwaukee, especially when we saw from the 5 game stretch in the playoffs that Kevin Porter Jr., he really was able to have a pretty great assist to turnover ratio. And I think it was a little over 5 assists, maybe 5.2 or 5.3 assists to maybe 2 turnovers or a little bit less than two. Just a fantastic assist to turnover ratio. You could see him really kind of smartening up when the postseason rolled around, and he was kind of a little bit more patient, kind of realizing that every possession matters, especially when you are determining so much in your team's offensive possessions. So I'm really really excited to see how he can build on that, because I think that was a pretty great point to leave off on. And going forward into the regular season, and at least in the preseason, he can kind of start to get into a little bit more of a rhythm and kind of get used to having that kind of responsibility and being depended on in that fashion, to be, again, just a reliable and smart playmaker. But also, I think it's great because he is also a guy like Cole Anthony, where, and he could do it more reliably, is that he can leverage his scoring ability. And he was a pretty efficient scorer for the Milwaukee Bucks last year, can leverage that ability with great passing, and I feel like overall he can be a pretty dangerous and efficient offensive weapon, both in terms of scoring and passing for the Bucks. And we're gonna see how this shakes out, but I am pretty confident that, I'm more confident in KPJ than Cole Anthony that he will be a reliable passer and smart one at that. But anyways, that'll be it for me today. Thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. And again, I've been Dean Simon. Make sure to leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. We are still very much on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so I would definitely appreciate you pressing that big red button. All right, I will see you guys in the next one. Go Bucks.